Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 15th Annual Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce State of Education Luncheon. We're so glad to have every one of you here today. I'm Allison Baumeister, Principal in Charge Tax, CLA Fort Worth, and the Chairman of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce. Did you know that the first public schools in Fort Worth were opened in 1882? That just also happened to be the same year that the Fort Worth Chamber was started, and it was known as the Board of Trade. That all happened less than 10 years after our city was incorporated. And as Fort Worth grew, the education system grew with it. It is now the Fort Worth Independent School District and is so woven into our community. How strong is the Fort Worth ISD today? What is its vision for its future? And how can the Fort Worth Chamber help? That's why we're all here today. And we'll start with the big picture.
This is Fort Worth, the way we see it every day. But let's take the 1,000-foot view, and you'll see that this is also Fort Worth ISD. Our 148 campuses, schools in every neighborhood, are preparing students for success in college and for tomorrow's workforce. So, no matter who you are, what you do, where you live, you belong here. Fort Worth ISD is a good place to be for a lot of good reasons. But don't just take our word for it. The Texas Education Agency says our most recent academic gains are among the best. The TEA named us one of 2 top districts in Texas in year-to-year positive growth in academic achievement. Our gains were across the board, including substantial increases in the percentage of students reading on grade level. And we've cut the number of campuses rated improvement required in half. Among those moving up to meeting the standard were 5 schools that were reconstituted as leadership academies. After investing time, top talent, and money at the campuses, including a $1 million gift from the Rainwater Charitable Trust, the accountability gains at all 5 campuses were in double digits. There's also our nationally recognized commitment to equity. The Fort Worth ISD Board of Education received the 2018 CUBE Award for Urban School Excellence from the Council of Urban Boards of Education, where educational equity is one of the core measures. Then there's our scholarship dollars. The class of 2018 earned a record-setting $102.6 million in merit scholarships and grant offers. That's up from $36 million just 3 years ago. At the front end of the education journey, our 4,000 littlest learners are getting a great start in Fort Worth ISD pre-K. How are you? And their parents got to register them online instead of in-line as our district moved to an all-online registration process. There's also this space right here, our new I Am Terrell Academy for STEM and VPA. From day one, this campus was buzzing with creative energy in labs, an incredible makerspace, and on the visual and performing arts side, in studios, practice rooms, and a world-class performance hall. And talk about engaging. The Cowan Humanities Academy at I Am Terrell makes us all want to go back to school. What does he say there? As construction on I Am Terrell was wrapping up, a new capital improvement program was already in high gear. Thanks to you, the voters, our record-setting 2017 bond is transforming learning spaces district-wide. The Fort Worth community is also all in for elementary literacy with Read Fort Worth, which is doing an outstanding job of aligning its partners, resources, and strategies to support our district's 100 by 25 literacy initiative to get all 3rd graders reading on grade level by the year 2025. Led by Mayor Price and Matt Rose, it's a perfect example of collective impact for bigger and quicker results, especially where they're needed most. As we've said before, we can't do it without you. You belong here.
Well, as the video said, you belong here today. Ladies and gentlemen, the Superintendent of Fort Worth ISD, Dr. Kent P. Scribner.
Thank you very much, Allison, and welcome, Fort Worth school community.
It is important to note that we could not accomplish anything that you saw outlined in that video without the courage, stability, and leadership of the Fort Worth ISD Board of Education. Our board is engaged throughout the Fort Worth community, serving this community in many ways. Those who are able to be with us today, I'd like to introduce them. They are our president of the board, Toby Jackson. Also with us is Mr. Norman Robbins, and the newest member of our board, Mr. Anael Luevano. Also here is trustee Christine Moss. I am proud to say that our board, in partnership with the TEA, has adopted a new way of doing business called Lone Star Governance. Our board, through Lone Star Governance, is solely focused on improving student outcomes. Lone Star Governance is founded on the premise that we cannot expect to have a culture in the classroom that doesn't exist in the boardroom. They and I thank you for your support and your belief in public education, and thank you for being here today. You'll notice that on your table, the district's most recent annual report. We are proud to bring this to you each year at this gathering, and we ask that you take it and display it in public spaces in your office. It's entitled You Belong Here, and it tells the story of our district in very human terms. Inside the annual report is a card also entitled You Belong Here. It's brief and it's factual. And it's important information we want you to share with others about Fort Worth ISD and its place in our community. Take this card and share it. Additional copies are available on the tables just outside this room. We all know that the quality of public education and the economic future of our community are inextricably linked. I was recently asked, how do you move the needle towards success in a large urban school district with all the challenges that come with serving low-income or language minority students? And I responded that the only way I know how to be a superintendent is through a collective impact lens, by engaging all sectors of the community around a common goal. It's work that we all must do together. We're a school district on the rise. Our Gold Seal programs and schools of choice offer outstanding opportunities. That's also true of our career and technical education courses. The success of these programs is essential to the success of Fort Worth and the region. The economy and education, again, are inextricably linked. Our commitment to universal pre-K, pre-kindergarten, is also an investment in the future, the best investment that we can make. And our 100 by 25 initiative, our collaboration with Reed Fort Worth, heralding a groundbreaking work that we believe will be a model for the rest of the nation. And our mission, our collective mission, is to prepare all students, ALL, all students, for success in college, career, and community leadership. That's important to everyone in this room, I know. And as a result, that's why you belong here today, because you know that your support and investment in Fort Worth ISD will yield benefits to every single member of our community. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Anthony Edwards, the Senior Vice President of Talent Development, Retention, and Attraction for the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce. Again, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dr. Scribner. If you represent an employer of any kind today, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. So keep your hand raised if you have challenges finding quality employees. Okay, so think about that. Think about that. All right, so before I introduce the panelists, I'll provide a brief overview of our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, Fortify, has 4 pillars: business attraction, expansion, and retention, small business and entrepreneur support, advocacy, and talent development, attraction, and retention. In the strategic planning process, we discovered some talent challenges in the Fort Worth region. The Fort Worth region holds just 30% of the jobs in the Metroplex. And the percentage of Fort Worth's adult population with a bachelor's degree is below the national average and below most of our national benchmark cities. And at least 60% of the jobs in 2030 are going to require education beyond high school. And whether you're an educator, a business leader, or community leader, we can all agree that we need to increase the percentage of students that are college and career ready, that are earning industry certifications, enrolling in college, and finishing college. And why does this matter? Improving educational attainment in our community helps your business grow, it attracts new businesses, and helps our community grow because learning changes lives. And at the Chamber, we want to help connect business and education to meet employer needs. We also want to drive the Fort Worth region to be the most thriving and inviting community for all. That's our mission, so that everyone participates in the economic boom happening here. Here are our talent and quality of place goals for our region. Let's increase the population in our region with a college degree or certificate. Let's increase our region's talent supply in targeted industries. Let's increase workforce and affordable housing in our community, and let's decrease the poverty rate together. To achieve these goals and strengthen Fort Worth's talent pipeline, we will execute the following strategies. We'll create industry sector partnerships that allow employers to develop talent solutions and partner with educators in developing talent. We'll bring leaders together to eliminate barriers to college completion and career success, including poverty, child care, housing, and transportation. We'll market Fort Worth as a talent destination and market resources and best practices in talent development, attraction, and retention. So if you're ready to help strengthen Fort Worth's talent pipeline, here's how you can get involved. Participate in an industry sector partnership. Chamber members, please join a Chamber Talent Committee or task force. Hire an intern and expand the number of local campuses where you recruit. Investigate ways to increase educational attainment in your workforce. And partner with ISDs, community colleges, and universities on curriculum and student projects. So you can contact me at the email address and number on the screen to get started, and I'm expecting my inbox to be full by this afternoon. And finally, Tarrant County Education Progress Reports will be available on our site very soon. Now let's convene the panel. All right, so today, joining Dr. Scribner, we have Mayor Betsy Price, who's made support for public education one of the pillars of our city. Mayor Price also serves along with Dr. Scribner with BNSF Chairman Matt Rose and leaders of Read Fort Worth, a community-wide movement to improve early literacy in support of Fort Worth ISD's 100 by 25 goal. So let's thank Mayor Price. Commissioner Mike Morath, who leads the Texas Education Agency, the TEA, and oversees pre-kindergarten through pre-kindergarten through high school education for more than 5 million students across our state. Commissioner Morath. Anel Mercado, the new Executive Director of Read Fort Worth. Ms. Mercado has deep experience in leading successful collective impact initiatives across the country. Anel Mercado. First question is for Commissioner Morath. Thank you for joining us. Here in Fort Worth, we understand the close link between education and the economy. Could you tell us what Fort Worth ISD and other large districts around the state are doing to achieve this goal?
It's really a huge number of activities, but what I see in Fort Worth and what I see in a few of other of our major districts that are seeing significant progress is a focus on a few narrow areas. We know that the most important factor that drives student outcomes is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. And if you are not relentlessly focused on supporting teachers, on helping support effective instructional environments, virtually everything else that we do will not yield fruit. And in Fort Worth, you do see a very relentless focus on instructional quality, on curricular quality, in terms of how the students are supported. You also have seen what I would say is a mindset shift in the way that Fort Worth, from the governing board on down, views the role of the organization. We all, I think, have this particular view of what school is, informed by the fact that generally all of us went to school. And we think of it as books and teachers and classrooms and desks. But that's really not what education is. Education is about achieving outcomes for students. It's about helping ensure that our young people, when they graduate through the system, through this 13-year process, that they are prepared to be citizens in our republic, that they are equipped for the American dream, that they are educated in a broad sense. And when you recognize that your role as a school system is not necessarily narrowly focused on core processes of what it looks like today, but instead you think about outcomes orientations. What is the quickest way for us as an organization to achieve those outcomes for kids, regardless of who is delivering it, regardless of how it is being delivered? And this mindset of how can we achieve great schools for all of our kids, an A campus environment, a high-performing campus environment, regardless of how it's structured, regardless of how it's organized. You've seen it, Fort Worth embrace that philosophical approach and that orientation to say, is this working? Is it delivering outcomes for kids? And how do we adjust on it in terms of service delivery? It creates much more rapid innovation, much more rapid iteration in terms of what school looks like for kids. And that's particularly important if you have an environment that is not necessarily high performing at present. How can you get it to high performing very quickly? And that ethos, I think, permeates Fort Worth and many of our school systems to try to, again, relentlessly focus on outcomes improvements for kids.
And as a follow-up to that, I know you all in the Texas Education Agency are working collaboratively with the Workforce Commission and with the Higher Education Coordinating Board. Can you talk about kind of the new model of how they're working together?
Yeah, so the governor convened us last year as part of a tri-agency workforce commission, where you think of TWC, the Workforce Commission, the Higher Ed Coordinating Board, and the TEA, to create sort of an aligned ecosystem to support students in a more effective way than happens in the past. And a lot of that can seem esoteric pretty quickly, but let me make it very tangible. If the 12th grade year for a student is going to prom and homecoming and football and otherwise a good social experience, why do we have that at all? Instead, we need to re-engineer the high school experience so that last bit of high school is as effectively connected to career, as effectively connected to college as is possible. So you think about aligned workforce opportunities for students while they're in high school, 9 through 12. You think about aligned collegiate curricular resources that they have access to in 12th grade. If they are not sweating their tail off by the time they graduate 12th grade, we have failed to launch them into modern America. And you are seeing that kind of re-engineering aspect happen in schools all over the state, and we're trying to support that work through our tri-agency cooperation between Higher Ed and the Workforce Commission at the agency.
Thank you. Mayor Price, you're a big city mayor who recognizes the important role that education plays in our community. So what's changed in Fort Worth in recent years, and where would you like to see this go?
I've always been a big proponent of education, and I think that the mayor's office has the strongest bully pulpit probably in the city. And if we don't come along beside our superintendent, our school board, and partner with them, the city isn't going to succeed. I think what's changed is, you saw the statistics, you gave them, we only 30% college graduates. The demand for a different workforce, a truly well-educated workforce, is getting higher by the day, and we have to look at that. Every child deserves a quality education. Doesn't matter where their zip code is or where they live. And so the city has to be a partner working on that. We started Read Fort Worth for just that reason, and the business community has to join with us. But we simply have to recruit talented people, and we never can import enough education to cover the workforce. We have to grow our own. And Fort Worth ISD is our largest partner in growing those. And if we're going to grow them, then the whole community has to stand up and say, education is our #1 priority. As mayor, you realize it's all about economic development, it's about crime, it's about poverty levels, it's about neighborhoods that are struggling, it's about the community health. There isn't an area that we deal with in the city that education doesn't touch. If we start young and grow our own in 18 years, because you said a 13-year education or 12, it's really an 18-year education because it's cradle up for these kids. And it's a changed workforce, it's a changed focus. We need more people that are technically oriented. We need people that have great people skills. And the entrepreneur spirit is growing dramatically. And for cities to be healthy, you have to be encouraging that talent to stay here. The universities are turning out thousands of kids, Texas Wesleyan, soon Tarleton, TCU, UTA. We want them to stay here in Fort Worth. Many of them are Fort Worth kids, and so we've got to do everything we can to partner with Kent and the school board to make this happen. And I think Reed Fort Worth is the tip of the iceberg on the partnerships. But just as importantly, and you all know what I'm going to say, every one of you in this audience has to come alongside and make education your #1 priority if this city's going to succeed. And it will succeed because Fort Worth always does.
Thank you. Superintendent Scribner, everyone knows about this early literacy initiative, and for good reason. We know how important it is. But we hear a lot about third grade reading, but what are you doing for middle and high school students to make sure they're career and college ready?
Well, that's a great question, and to the mayor's point, this entire conversation is about cradle through career. Third grade reading is one of the board's 3 goals, and we're fortunate through our new governance structure that the board goals are the district goals, are my performance evaluation goals. So we're focused on 3 things: early literacy, middle years math as defined by success in freshman algebra, and college and career preparedness. The way we crescendo, as the commissioner said, a student's experience on beyond high school is through schools of choice, programs of choice, small specialized academic programs, some of them separate, standalone, like the I.M. Terrell Academy, others embedded into the large comprehensive high school. Our career and technical education programs, we have 18,000 students in our CTE programs, and those are programs preparing students for jobs that exist now, but also for jobs of the future. 2/3 of the kids who are in CTE programs are going to start jobs after college or after a certification or licensure program that don't exist today. So the world is continuing to change, and we need to backwards map with industry and have them help us understand where we need to focus. And we're partnering there with a Texas Wesleyan, with TCC on dual credit enrollment, and also a new program on ramps. We have 2,300 students working with the University of Texas also getting dual credit. So it's important that we focus not only on the babies, on birth to 3rd grade, but being successful there will ensure success, I believe, in the middle years and then through college and career preparedness. It's a continuum.
And then related to that, I know you all had a record year in terms of seniors earning scholarships for college. I know there's a FAFSA completion, that's a financial aid application. How can our community support that campaign?
Well, absolutely. So when we all met 3 years ago and I came to Fort Worth, it was clear to me that our students were leaving a lot of money on the table. Students that year earned $36 million in scholarships. With the FAFSA focus, with business leaders helping our students apply for scholarships with their one-page personal statement. A lot of students don't have the social capital and the parents at home who can help them edit those and write those. That's a great role for business leaders. We've gone from $36 million in merit scholarships 3 years ago to $102 million today.
Right.
And we're probably still leaving some money on the table. Right. So the work is not done. Our students, our high school students, middle school students, elementary school students are not problems to be solved. Rather, they are assets to be invested in. This is exactly the right group to do that. You belong here.
Thank you. Ms. Mercado, we're hearing a lot about collective impact. So what does a successful collective impact look like?
Yes, thank you, and I'm honored to be here. I've had the opportunity to become a student of collective impact over the past 5 years, and we have in our community our own set of unique challenges and strengths. We're not alone though, and there are 70 partnerships like ours across the country who are using the collective impact focused on education. And it is a framework, one that we're going to take to the next level over the next few years, and it is around that common vision, bringing together the business community, our nonprofit partners, bringing the faith community into the fold, and really looking at how do we circle around our education system, coming alongside the school district. And data is going to be a key piece to this. So taking a deeper dive into the data, I love the quote, it's a flashlight, not a hammer. It is going to show us what's working, what we could potentially scale, and where the areas of focus are going to be. It's also about aligning everything we're doing so that when we know our community partners are doing great work, and how is that aligned to the impact that we're looking for on student outcomes and what's happening in the classroom, and then making sure that we're building the relationships and that trust that we need to be able to move this work forward, and building the team up in Reed Fort Worth that's going to take us to the next level. But I think there's a lot that we can learn from some of the other partnerships across the country, and more importantly, we have expertise right here in our community that we want to harness and be able to use to move the work forward.
Thank you. So Commissioner Morath, we have a legislative session coming up in January. What do you?
Do we have to do that?
Yeah, we do.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was coming.
Well, fortunately, you get to be on the executive side and not the legislative side. But what do you see as the major issues for large urban districts as the session convenes?
Well, perhaps the topic that is going to have the most conversation in Austin has already begun. The legislature passed a provision to launch a school finance commission, and those conversations have been happening for 6 months or more now, and they're discussing a whole host of very substantive changes to the school finance system. And I would say that for folks who have watched this for years and years, this is unlike, I think, any prior attempt, because typically the nature of these conversations is let's figure out how we can pass out money in a slightly different way to increase equity or whatnot. But that's part of the conversation, but it's also focused on, are there structural incentives that can be embedded in the school finance system that drive outcomes in a very substantial way. You may have heard, for example, tied to this, that the governor wants to ensure that we create a pathway that's supported through the school finance system so that teachers in Texas have the opportunity to make 6 figures. This is something I think that would be fundamentally transformational to public education, but it has to be done obviously in a thoughtful way. And there are similar kinds of structural overhauls being discussed, I think, at the School Finance Commission. So that's going to occupy, I think, a huge set of attention at the legislature this session. And my role is simply to support members of the legislature as they're evaluating different policy options to try to provide some sense of how that will impact the system one way or another.
So as a follow-up to that, Dr. Scribner, from the local perspective, I guess maybe what challenges does the current system face, and maybe what are some things that you would like to see going forward?
Well, I know one thing that the commissioner and I certainly agree upon, and that's putting money where the outcomes are achieving success. So identifying those programs that work and investing in those. Our leadership academies are an outgrowth of the ACE initiative that took place when Commissioner Morath was the trustee. We identified our top teachers through a scientific process, a statistical analysis of which teachers had the most value add in their classrooms, invited them to go to our most challenged schools, some of those 3, 4, and 5, and 1, 6 years of underperformance, and identifying those top teachers, incentivizing them with a $10,000 stipend, but they earned the stipend. The school day did not end at 3 o'clock. the school day ends at 4 o'clock with an extra hour of reading and mathematics embedded into the school day, and students don't go home at 4 o'clock. They stay for enrichment, they stay for after-school tutoring, athletics, fine arts, are served dinner, and then go home at 6 p.m. because students who are not starting the educational race at the educational starting line need two things: more time on task, and most importantly, as the commissioner said, a high-quality teacher and a high-quality principal.
Thank you. So, Mayor Price, you've gone all in for early literacy and the support of early childhood initiatives. So, based on your experience with the National League of Cities, what really distinguishes Fort Worth from other cities in this work?
Well, first let me comment on the legislative issue. I'm delighted to see that you're going to talk them into focusing on paying teachers more, because that's critical.
Yes.
We're going to get there. And the other thing is, we have to get the state to own up to their piece of what they owe in education. It can't fall back on the backs of local taxpayers. We've shifted, and I remember, Mike, I used to be the tax assessor in the 17 years since I've been in this business. We've shifted the burden from 60% state, 40% local, to 60% local and 40% state. And that's got to change. That's kind of one of my bully pulpit items, and it's got to change. Judge Whitley would kill me if I didn't say that anyway. But early learning truly is a strong focus in Fort Worth, and Fort Worth is very lucky to have the Early Learning Alliance. It's recognized statewide. Kids are going to spend, their brain is going to be 85% developed by the time they're 5 years old. So cradle to pre-K, to early pre-K, those first few years are critical. Our Early Learning Alliance, our philanthropic partners, our business communities are really beginning to catch on that we have to provide quality child care, not just child care. Judy's here from Workforce Solutions. Judge Whitley and I and Judge Williams, we have, what are we now, $70 million? $70 million that comes through Workforce Solutions for child care. And until recently, there was very little strings on it that said this has to be quality. We have major areas in our city where we don't have quality child care. Imagine a young family with 2 kids, and they're spending $1,000 minimum to generally $2,000 or more for their child care for the first 5 years of their child's life. And oftentimes that's not the quality. But if we don't change, and we're very fortunate in Fort Worth that we're beginning, Lena Pope Home, the Early Learning Alliance are making huge strides. But if we don't change that pipeline, we will never get to where our 3rd grade literacy should be and where middle school math has to be. National League of Cities you ask about, I chair the National League of Cities Education Committee. It's not just Fort Worth folks that are struggling with education, it's every major city in the nation. And we are in better shape than an awful lot of them. But everyone's realizing it's a major turn. At National League of Cities, we're focusing on early childhood. We're focusing on business engagement as one of our strong things. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has been engaged with us to try to see where can we plug the business community in to really make education our focus.
Thank you. Superintendent Scribner, we saw a new accountability measure system being unveiled this year for public schools, including an A through F rating, I'm seeing the smiles, for districts that will eventually extend to the individual campuses. Some districts like it, others have pushed back. Where do you stand?
Well, a couple things. First, I was thrilled this summer when the commissioner calls you on your cell phone, it's either really good news or really bad news. In fact, I was picking up my wife who was visiting her parents and at the airport, and circling looking for a spot, and I saw Mike Morath, and I said, goodness gracious, and answered it, and he said, Fort Worth ISD is one of the top 2 large urbans in the state of Texas in year-to-year academic growth. So, and we still have a long way to go. But A through F, I know a lot of my brother and sister superintendents protest it. I'm fortunate that I experienced, this is my 16th year as a superintendent, I did 13 years in another state. I experienced the state transitioning to A through F. And what I would tell my colleagues is, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And since it's here to stay, these are the new rules, and it should be. A grading system is nothing more than a communication system, like your performance evaluation at work. All that is the boss communicating to you a message. Very few people know what underperforming means, or met standard, or highly performing, but everybody knows what a D is, and everybody knows what a B is, and everybody knows what an A is. So what's good about that is we can identify those schools that are achieving in spite of the odds. We have two schools in the what if category because the schools didn't receive grade levels, but we can do math and we can guess what their grades would have been. We have two schools, Bonnie Bray Elementary and Worth Heights Elementary, both with more than 90% poverty, more than 90% free and reduced, are letter grade A schools. So if they can do it, everybody can do it. Just briefly to wrap it up, what I like about what the commissioner is pushing for is it allows us to leverage success and take it to scale and say, if they can do it with over 90% poverty, everybody can do it.
Right, and related to that innovation, quickly, if you could mention the call for innovative schools and kind of what you're doing there.
Sure, and this relates to what Anel was talking about in terms of common use of data. So again, with TEA as our partner, we've engaged in the System of Great Schools work, where we're looking to identify great seats for every kid in every zip code in every corner of the city. Identifying through a school performance network, those schools that are achieving, they've earned some autonomy. Those in the middle will receive typical support, and those that are struggling, we're going to dive into them from an equity perspective and give them more attention. Additionally, we want to work with our charter partners and look for district charter hybrids, get the best of both worlds. We can bring them in, benefit from our infrastructure, maybe we can benefit a little bit from their autonomy and create a new model in Fort Worth ISD where the district and our board are chartering schools, and we can look at some innovation from a different perspective. We established a new Office of Innovation in partnership with TEA, and we're doing an RFP process, a call for great schools. We don't want to partner with folks who are running charters that are not good for students and families. We want to partner with those that have a track record of success, because all of our all of our students deserve a great school.
Thank you. And I want to just conclude by giving you all a minute to maybe talk about why the community needs to get involved in supporting education. So your last comments.
We won't be able to do it without the community. I think I know our Reliant partners are here, and we know we won a big gift thanks to the community coming together and voting, and that was taking your phone and voting. But we're talking about taking it to another level, and that is harnessing the expertise that we know exists within the business community and with our partners. And so it really is, let's have some different conversations about what that could look like. It could mean reading with children, but it could mean working at a whole different level. So I really want to have the opportunity to talk about what that could look like as we use the data and we think strategically about where we want to go next. This community is poised for that. I am so excited to be here because of that. We are poised to go to the next level, and it is because all of you and this great community.
I would simply say we cannot do it without you. Think about it. Think about the arithmetic. A child is in a school building 7.5 hours of a 24-hour day, 5 days of a 7-day week, 180 days of a 365-day year. So a child from birth to 18 is somewhere else 85% of the time. We need your help. We need a cross-sector of business leaders, faith leaders, nonprofits, philanthropic community, social service agency, all wrapping their arms around our kids. As Anthony said, we can attract talent. We can import smart people, but we cannot export poverty. And if we need to invest in our kids, because the students in our classrooms today are going to be the workforce and the adults of the future, and again, they are the best investment we can make.
And really, it's because you are the city. You're the backbone, the heartbeat of this city, whether it's at work, whether it's at your church, whether it's at the YMCA, or whether it's just out and about. You want a safe city. You want a city that's become a model city for education. You want to be able to hire talent. You want your own children. I don't know about you, but I wanted my children to return to Fort Worth because I wanted my grandchildren here as much as anything. But you want a city that's safe, a city that's grown its own education, grown its workforce, and that continues to work. And the only way we can make that happen is if all of you come along beside and really return the focus back to education. I'm afraid for years we said the schools will do it while we were busy, and it's a changed world. They can't do it alone anymore. The old adage that's tried but true, it takes a community to do it, and it really does in this case.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that sentiment that, you know, if you don't spend a great deal of time walking the halls and watching teachers, masters of the craft ply their trade, it's actually easy to forget how unbelievably difficult this work is. Think for a moment of the last encounter you had with somebody that you met that was a brain surgeon, like your immediate reaction that you had to this person. And what do our brain surgeons do? They're going to walk into the clean room and they're going to scrub their bodies of impurities because years and years of training have made that more or less automatic. And as they're doing that, they're going to think about what they read in the most recent medical journal about this promising practice, and they're going to think about the scalpels and the lasers they're going to use. They're going to think about the patient's case history and everything that could go right or could go wrong. And then they walk into the operating room, and there's one brain that they're responsible for, and it's asleep on a table. And our teachers every day walk into operating rooms, and there's not one brain, but there's 20, and those brains are very much awake and giving active feedback during the surgery. This is incredibly difficult work. It takes people with missionary zeal and passion, but it takes people with high levels of cognitive skill and who are dedicated to a refinement and improvement of the practice. And this happens when you only see the kids 15 to 20% of the time. We forget sometimes when we talk about public schools that these are schools that the public owns. And if we abdicate responsibility, if you hear Superintendent Scribner talk about his strategic vision, and you hear the board members talk about the leadership they provide, and you're like, that's it, they got it figured out, I am supporting them, I'm behind them 100 ways, y'all get it done. Like, it ain't gonna work. This requires all of us to step up, all of us to be involved and to take ownership for each one of these children as if they were our own biological children. Because there are places where you walk into the schools and despite the best efforts of people, despite the best intentions, despite the missionary zeal and the love that we have for our kids, what is happening is not good enough. It is not good enough. It wouldn't be good enough for my kids. It wouldn't be good enough for yours, and yet it happens. And we can become calloused and just let that happen because these are big systems. They spend lots of money. They are, in fact, big business operations, although they are businesses unlike any I've ever seen in terms of the complexity. We are all going to have to step up and do our part. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can get involved. You can be a big brother or big sister, be an individual tutor, mentor, take responsibility for one life that you don't have to. Imagine how different this world would be if that were the case for all of us. But you can also be involved at a campus level, volunteer, bring some love offerings to the teachers. Lord knows they need it. And provide, to the extent that you have some business expertise, provide some executive mentoring to coaches or to our principals. Support school board members when they're making courageous decisions. Get involved in nonprofit organizations, but do something because our kids require us. Like we judge the strength of a civilization by the resources and attention that it gives to the next generation, because that is in fact the future of our civilization. So to those of you, and I'm undoubtedly preaching to the choir here, but to those of you who have already stepped up and made this commitment, I thank you for it. But whatever we're doing today, next week we got to be a little bit better because we are on a journey of continuous improvement for our kids, and we owe it to them morally to do this. And even if you don't care about the kids at all, like the future of the economy is at stake, the future of the republic is at stake. So absolutely step up and get involved.
Thank you. So as we yeah. So as we close, I just want to say thank you. And if you want to be involved in strengthening Fort Worth's talent pipeline, please reach out, connect to us at the Chamber. We're here to help you.
Thank you all so much. We so appreciate your time and for being here. And they've all also graciously agreed to stay after to answer individual questions on how businesses and education can collaborate more. So we appreciate that. And also, as a token of our appreciation, the Chamber of Commerce is making a donation to Read Fort Worth.
All right.
So thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great and safe afternoon.